Why are lenses round? I mean, is it possible to have a rectangular lens? I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool. Imagine not having it rolling about all over the place, and could I potentially get better image quality? Well, when I thought this to myself, I'd done quite a lot of research, as you would do, and I found a boring answer and a quite interesting answer. So we'll start with the boring one. The boring one is, if we were to have rectangular lenses, they would be very expensive because they would waste a lot of the elements. So glass cutting elements are made obviously to very, very high precision out of a giant sheet basically of glass, and if you were to cut out rectangles, you would have a lot more waste than if you were to cut out circles. But that's boring, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper because we all know that some companies like to spend money on crazy ideas. Even as far back as cameras go, they all have one thing in common, and that's circular lenses. So how would this work? First off, we need to understand how a lens works. So we obviously have the lens barrel, and we have the glass elements. Now excuse this really dusty lens, I don't even shoot in Canon anymore and I still have the lens lying about. Basically, when light enters the lens, it's dispersed into a convex lens which focuses the beam of light, and ultimately the job is to focus the light and then disperse it onto the sensor as evenly as possible. If it wasn't even, you wouldn't have A, an in-focus image, and B, it wouldn't be very sharp. If it wasn't focused perfectly, you would have a very blurry, messy shambles of an image. So rectangular glass, as it turns out, isn't very good at focusing light. You see, you need to have this kind of convex shape, which basically allows the light to enter and bounce up into the sensor. And if it was rectangular, it would be uneven. So that's reason number one why it would be practically impossible. Now, I'm not saying it is impossible, because I'm sure there's someone out there that's managed to make this work. And then not only that, when it comes to twisting lenses, this would add an extra layer of cost to the user, because you would need it to be electronic, because obviously it's not as easy to twist in a rectangular lens than it is on a cylindrical one. Good English. On a cylindrical one. But then we come into probably the most interesting reason, well, at least to me, and that is how light actually works after it enters and disperses onto the sensor. You see, with a rectangular lens, if you were to hold it portrait and then swap it to landscape, you would have a bit of a problem. So here's the problem. Let's say, for instance, my phone is a camera, right? And if this was a rectangular lens and we were to hold it horizontally and then swap to portrait, light wouldn't be entering the lens evenly. And this as well would lead to a messy, unfocused mess of an image. Because not only would you be getting things out of focus, but you would also be getting things unevenly lit. And that poses a big problem when it comes to photography. So that's a very, very short video. And that leads me on to yet another question, which I've now stupidly have. If these are cylindrical, why aren't the sensors in the camera circle?